Brought to you by 1AAuto.com, your source for quality replacement parts and the best service on the internet.
Hi, I'm Mike from 1AAuto. I hope this how-to video helps you out. And next time you need parts for your vehicle, think of 1AAuto.com. Thanks.
In this video, we're going to show you how to replace the hub on this 2005 Cobalt. This vehicle has 4 lugs and no ABS, but the process for a vehicle, if you have the 5 lug and you have ABS on your vehicle, the process is generally the same. There's just one extra lug nut, and you also have to disconnect and reconnect the ABS harness. So we're going to show you front hub replacement. The tools you'll need are jack and jack stands, 14 and 19 millimeter sockets, a 30 millimeter socket, and the reason I put that separately is because that's generally not one that's in a common tool set. You'll need ratchets and extensions, and you'll need either a breaker bar or a pipe for some of the bolts because they will be difficult to loosen, and then you'll need a large screwdriver and probably a hammer. With the wheel cover off, you'll want to remove the center lug nut, or the center hub nut. It's a 30 millimeter nut, and you'll want to probably have the car on the ground. If you're working with hand tools, have the car on the ground. The car will hold itself in place. Use a large breaker bar or a ratchet with a pipe and remove that center nut. Then also, again, if you have just hand tools, loosen up the lug nuts, then raise and secure the vehicle on jack stands and remove the lug nuts and wheel and tire.
Okay, use a small pry bar or a screwdriver and just pry out here. That'll allow the caliper to come off easier. You'll want to remove this 14 millimeter bolt and this 14 millimeter bolt. Take your caliper and your brake pads off.
Okay, just speed it up here as I remove those 2 bolts. Those bolts should not be in there that tight, so they should come out with a regular wrench with some force. And then when I take the caliper off, I just kind of put it up on the strut and then use a large screwdriver and just pry the pads off.
Okay, now you want to remove the caliper bracket, which is 2 15 millimeter bolts, one here, one here. 15 millimeter socket. You want to use a breaker bar or a piece of pipe like this for extra leverage.
And I'll speed up here again as I just remove those 2 bolts the rest of the way and then remove that bracket.
Okay. Now the axle, it's already nice and loose. What you can do, if it doesn't just push right out, you don't want to beat on it too much with a hammer because you don't want to ruin your constant velocity joints. But what you can do is just give it one good wrap, and if you see it move, then once it starts moving, it should come out pretty easily. The next step would be to remove the 3 bolts that hold the hub, which is one here, one up here, and then one on the back side right here. We're going to use an extension and our bar again for the extra leverage, and they should come apart fairly easily.
Fast forward again here as I remove the other bolts, and just one note, if you have ABS brakes, the car I'm working on does not have ABS brakes, but if you have ABS brakes, you'll want to disconnect your ABS lead probably before you take out the rear bolt, and that's pretty easy. You'll see the clamp, the connection, it's right in behind the hub. You pull it off the clamp that holds on to the metal bracket and then just pull a tab up and take the disconnect the lead.
Okay, and if you had ABS brakes at this point, actually before you would hammer it out, you'd unhook the ABS sensor And then when you pull it out, just be careful, pull the sensor out. Okay. Washer, and then take the backing plate off. The backing plate can stay right there for right now. New hub from Morning Auto. It's going to go right on. If you have ABS, you'll want to feed the sensor wire through first. Okay, this goes on, pointing to the front. Get the hub into the axle a little bit.
Start one of the bolts from the back side, press the hub against it, and then start the bolt in.
Push the hub on, start the bolt in.
I'll speed up here as I start all three bolts in and then kind of tighten them just firm. You want to torque them afterwards, tighten them up, and obviously at this point, if you had the ABS brakes, make sure you reconnect your ABS harness and clip the connection back onto the backing plate.
Tighten these to 70 to 75 foot-pounds.
And speed up here again as I just tighten the other two bolts.
Put the washer on. And your nut. Now I'm just going to kind of preliminarily tighten this up.
Okay, I'm going to kind of speed up through here, putting the brakes back together. If you wanted to see this in regular speed, we do have a video for the brakes for the Chevy Cobalt, but you put the disc back in place or the rotor back in place. I use a nut to hold it on, or a lug nut to hold it on, then put the caliper bracket back on, tighten those bolts. You want to torque those bolts to 75 to 80 foot-pounds. And then once you have that all set, then you'll put the pads back in place. And then put the caliper down into place and tighten the bolts that hold the caliper. You want to tighten those from 20 to 22 foot-pounds. And continuing with the faster motion here, put your wheel and tire back in place. If you put a lug to hold the disc on, you can take that off. Put the wheel and tire back in place, start the lug nuts by hand, and then preliminarily tighten them before you let the vehicle down.
Okay, torque your lug nuts to 100 foot-pounds. Okay, now you'll want to torque your spindle nut to 155 foot-pounds.
And if applicable, put your center cap or your hubcap back on and install the retainers. Anytime you've had the brakes apart, pump them up a bunch of times, then do test stops of 5 and 10 miles an hour before road testing the vehicle. Make sure everything's working well. We hope this helps you out. Brought to you by www.oneauto.com, your source for quality replacement parts and the best service on the internet. Please feel free to call us toll-free 888-844-3393. We're the company that's here for you on the internet and in person.